The wives of cartel bosses didn't just marry power, they became part of it. Behind high walls and guarded gates, they lived in mansions, wore designers, and dined like royalty. But every luxury car and diamond necklace came stamped with blood. They weren't just bystanders. They moved money, guarded secrets, and kept billion-dollar empires alive.
We would have, a room full of money, $1 to $2 million sitting in the room, for us to grab at our expense, and that was usual.
From one who laundered millions through family businesses to one who pulled off escapes fit for Hollywood, this is the deadly truth behind cartel wives. Number 5. Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia. They called her La Jefa, the boss lady. To the world outside, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia looked like the picture of class. Elegant, polished, untouchable. She was married to Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known as El Mencho, the feared leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most violent criminal groups on earth. From a distance, her life seemed flawless. Expensive handbags, luxury towers, private dinners in Mexico's wealthiest neighborhoods. But peel back the glass and shine, and you find something darker. Rosalinda lived in the heart of Zapopan's richest district, Puerta de Hierro. Picture marble floors in the lobby, concierge elevators that open straight into your apartment, and sports cars parked neatly outside. Reports linked her to Torre Ora Altitude, a skyscraper just steps from the Andares shopping district, where boutiques from Gucci, Prada, and Louis Vuitton waited every corner. In 2018, apartments there sold for about 11 million pesos, roughly $550,000. That's the kind of life she lived. Weekend dinners at Jalisco's fanciest restaurants, afternoons surrounded by Gucci and Louis Vuitton, all inside cartel territory. But here's the catch. Rosalinda wasn't just a cartel wife living off her husband's reputation. She came from money and power of her own. Her family is the Gonzalez Valencia clan, better known as Los Queenies. They were the financial masterminds who worked hand in hand with CJNG. Her brother, Abigail El Queenie Gonzalez Valencia, wasn't simply family. He was one of the cartel's money men, known for laundering cash and running companies across Mexico and beyond. For years, the U.S. Treasury and the DEA pieced together the puzzle of this network, naming relatives, front companies, and property managers. In April 2015, the U.S. formally declared CJNG and Los Queenies as drug traffickers under the Kingpin Act. From then on, sanctions and freezes hit their businesses again and again. The first crack in Rosalinda's perfect image came on May 26, 2018. Mexican Marines caught her off guard outside a 7-Eleven in Puerta de Hierro, right in her own neighborhood. Suddenly, the boss lady was in handcuffs. But it didn't last long. A judge allowed her to fight her case outside of prison after she posted bail, about 1.5 million pesos, roughly $82,000. Just like that, she was back in her luxury apartment, her life of comfort still intact. For a while, the spotless image returned. That calm didn't last. On November 16, 2021, the Mexican army came for her again. This time, the charges were even clearer. She was accused of managing CJNG's financial operations, the money flow behind the bloodshed. Hours after that arrest, 2 Mexican Marines vanished in the same city. Days later, they were found alive but tied up and beaten. News outlets reported the abduction was CJNG's retaliation, and some even said one of El Mencho's daughters helped organize it. That's the kind of power Rosalinda's name carried. When she was touched, the cartel struck back, even against the Navy. Her new home wasn't a glass tower anymore. She was sent to Cephariso 16, a federal women's prison in Morelos. And it wasn't pretty. Reports described grim conditions, including multiple deaths under investigation. This was a far cry from polished lobbies and fine dining. Then came the conviction that tied her wealth directly to dirty money. On December 17, 2023, Judge Guillermina Matias Garduño sentenced Rosalinda to 5 years in prison. The case wasn't about guns or shootouts. It was about laundering. Between 2015 and 2016, investigators found she moved money through a bank account linked to a car wash business in Puerto Vallarta. Around 75,000 pesos, roughly $4,000 to $5,000, were tied to her daughter, Jessica Johanna Oseguera. By cartel standards, that's pocket change. But that's the point. It wasn't about one giant transfer. It was about small, ordinary businesses used as covers. A car wash that looked harmless became a funnel for dirty cash. The court called it what it was, laundering. And Rosalinda got 5 years. But even after a prison sentence, her story didn't just fade away. In early 2025, a judge granted Rosalinda early release for good behavior and time already served. The Attorney General's office immediately tried to block it. For weeks, it was back and forth. one side pushing for her freedom, the other trying to keep her locked up. And then, on February 27, 2025, it happened. She walked out of Cephariso 16. Once again, Rosalinda was free. Number 4. Emma Coronel Aispuro. Emma Coronel Aispuro is the wife of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the man who turned the Sinaloa cartel into a global empire. While he built his fortune on drugs and violence, Emma built something very different on the surface, a glossy image of wealth, style, and celebrity. She first stepped into the spotlight as a teenage beauty queen, but by the years 2018 and 2019, she was grabbing headlines in New York, not for pageants, but for standing by El Chapo during his trial. Cameras caught her walking in and out of the Brooklyn courthouse in sharp designer outfits, and the press covered her looks like it was a fashion show. One surreal moment stood out in January of 2019, when she and El Chapo showed up in matching velvet blazers. Reporters said it looked almost staged, like they were performing for the cameras. Away from the courtroom, Emma leaned into the image. She built a big Instagram following, showing off the polished lifestyle of a modern influencer.
Esposa en mi lugar, ¿no? Estar con su esposo en momentos difíciles que son los que está pasando en este momento.
In November of 2019, she even joined the VH1 reality show, Cartel Crew, with scenes of her on a sleek yacht in Miami. That same year, she tried to turn El Chapo's name into a brand, helping launch a family company for a clothing line called JGL. The plan was to sell hoodies, t-shirts, and accessories to a global audience. To outsiders, she looked like the perfect celebrity wife, front row in one of the world's most infamous crime stories. But prosecutors say that was only the surface. The United States Justice Department revealed that Emma wasn't just a loyal spouse. She was part of the operation. After El Chapo was locked inside Mexico's Altiplano prison, Emma acted as his messenger. She carried instructions about debts, shipments, and even violence to other cartel leaders. Through her, he was still running the cartel from his cell. And then came what sounded like a movie script. Emma helped plan the famous tunnel escape of 2015. Prosecutors said she delivered about $1 million in cartel cash to pay off guards, arranged for a GPS watch to be smuggled inside, hidden in food, and helped set up the safe house near the prison where the tunnel began. On July 11th of that year, El Chapo slipped through a hole in his shower and vanished into the mile-long tunnel that had been dug straight to him. Even after he was recaptured in 2016, Emma kept working. Prosecutors said she helped deliver another $1 million to keep him comfortable, and that a $2 million bribe was paid to a top prison official with her help. A second tunnel was even planned before El Chapo was moved, and later extradited to the United States in 2017. Emma also enjoyed the benefits. Court records say she lived in cartel-funded homes, managed properties bought with dirty money, and collected rent from them for more than a decade. So when she showed up in court in polished outfits, that glamour wasn't separate from the business. It was funded by it. On February 22, 2021, federal agents arrested her at Dulles Airport in Virginia. A few months later, on June 10th, she stood in a Washington, D.C. courtroom and pleaded guilty to 3 major crimes: helping traffic drugs into the United States, laundering cartel money, and doing business with a sanctioned kingpin under the Kingpin Act. It wasn't small shipments. It was at least 5 kilograms of cocaine, 1 kilogram of heroin, half a kilogram of methamphetamine, and 1,000 kilograms of marijuana. On November 30th, 2021, her case reached the end. A judge sentenced her to 36 months in prison, 48 months of supervised release, and ordered her to give up nearly $1.5 million. She didn't serve all 3 years. In September of 2023, the Bureau of Prisons released her early from a halfway house in California. But she didn't walk away free. She now faces 4 years of supervision, including probation meetings, travel restrictions, and surprise searches. Number 3. Griselda Lopez Perez. Griselda Lopez Perez wasn't just another rich woman in Culiacan. She is the ex-wife of El Chapo. Through him, she stepped straight into a world of mansions hidden behind tall walls, convoys of armored trucks, and a lifestyle that always looked glamorous but was built on fear and blood. One of her addresses says it all: Cerro de las Siete Gotas, house number 62, in Colinas de San Miguel. If you're from Culiacan, you know this is not just some nice street. It's one of the city's richest areas, sitting up above everything else like its own kingdom. The neighbors aren't regular families. They're politicians, businessmen, cartel figures, people with money and power. Colinas de San Miguel is more than just fancy. Homes there are described as multi-level mansions with garages for multiple cars, swimming pools, and glossy finishes straight out of design magazines. In 2019, the Mexican government tried to auction off Griselda's house at Cerro de las Siete Gotas. The starting price was 11.2 million pesos, about $590,000 at the time. Other homes in the same neighborhood sold anywhere between 5 million and 17 million pesos, roughly $263,000 to almost $900,000. On paper, Griselda had it all. Her name was on property deeds. She had the right notaries to sign off. Everything looked respectable, but money could never erase the violence. In May of 2008, her son Edgar Guzman Lopez was murdered in a shopping center parking lot. Gunmen unleashed more than 500 AK-47 rounds. The sound echoed across Culiacan. For Griselda, it was proof that all the walls, cars, and houses in the world couldn't guarantee safety. In May of 2010, the walls came crashing down. Federal agents and soldiers stormed 7 properties tied to El Chapo's circle in one massive sweep. Griselda was detained, flown to Mexico City for questioning. When she was held, her power network showed itself. Dozens of lawyers rushed to defend her, and by nightfall, she was free. But even if she walked out, the raid revealed everything. Authorities seized 6 of the 7 houses, 7 luxury vehicles, 5 safes stuffed with jewelry, plus computers and laptops. And these weren't random cars. The fleet included an Audi convertible, 2 Land Rovers, 1 white, 1 silver, a pearl white Cadillac, a Toyota RAV4, a white Chevy Cheyenne pickup, and a silver Mercedes-Benz. That garage looked more like a luxury dealership than a family's driveway. Griselda didn't stay silent. She filed a human rights complaint, saying the searches were abusive. Mexican media later printed the full list of raid locations. Along with the 2 Colinas de San Miguel addresses, there were properties in Eustaquio Buelna, Álvaro Obregón, Presa Don Martín, El Dorado, and Rio Elota. It was like flipping through a catalog of Culiacan's richest neighborhoods. Even years later, the door kept swinging open. In 2014, investigators returned to Cerro de las Siete Gotas for another search. Her lawyer insisted she no longer had ties to El Chapo, but by then, the house itself had become infamous. Meanwhile, the United States turned up the pressure. On September 6, 2012, Treasury officially sanctioned Griselda under the Kingpin Act. They accused her of helping El Chapo hide money and avoid capture. That sanction is like a financial death sentence. U.S. banks close their doors, U.S. citizens are banned from doing business with you, and any connection to the American financial system risks being frozen. Number 2. Maria Victoria Henao. Maria Victoria Henao was the wife of Pablo Escobar, the man who turned Medellin into the cocaine capital of the world. When Escobar was killed in 1993, she was left to protect what remained of their family, and whatever shadow of his empire still lingered. Just 1 year later, in 1994, she crossed into Argentina with her son. She changed her name to Maria Isabel Santos and built a brand new life in Buenos Aires. This new life looked nothing like the chaos of Medellin. Instead of bodyguards, shootouts, and narco palaces, she had quiet school runs, polished apartments, and the image of a respectable middle-class woman. Reporters in Argentina described her life as calm and discreet, like she was determined to disappear into the crowd, and she chose a city that seemed perfect for reinvention. Buenos Aires was full of charm, broad tree-lined avenues, century-old cafes, tango shows for tourists, and wealthy neighborhoods like Vicente Lopez on the river. From the outside, it looked like Pablo Escobar's widow had left the world of cocaine and bloodshed far behind. But prosecutors later said there was more to the story. They claimed that what looked like reinvention was really laundering in disguise.
Me dijo, esté tranquilita, mi amor, que ya pasamos de la parte más difícil. Ahora todas las cosas se van a solucionar.
According to court filings, her comfortable life in Buenos Aires was connected to investments that came from José Beirón Piedrahita Ceballos, a Colombian trafficker already flagged by U.S. authorities under the Kingpin Act. In their version, the stylish addresses and calm routines were built on a money trail designed to clean cartel dollars. That hidden world came crashing into headlines in late 2017. Police raids suddenly linked her to one of Buenos Aires's cultural landmarks, Café de los Angelitos. This wasn't some back alley dive. The cafe was more than a century old and had been renovated into a glamorous tango theater. Tourists came in suits and dresses, sipping wine under velvet curtains while dancers performed each night. But behind the red seats and stage lights, prosecutors claimed that about $15 million in dirty money had been funneled through the cafe's books. It was the perfect place for cartel cash to hide in plain sight. By June of 2018, the calm image Escobar's widow had built started to unravel. Federal Judge Nestor Barral officially charged her, along with her son Juan Sebastian Marroquin and former Boca Juniors star Mauricio Chicho Serna. The charges were money laundering. None of them was thrown into a cell, but the court froze their assets. The routine of apartments and school runs had collided with corruption files and court paperwork. Investigators painted a clear picture of how the money moved. Piedrahita's network funneled cash through an Argentine businessman named Mateo Corvo Dolcet. From there, the money went into two main channels. One channel was glossy real estate projects in the district of Pilar, with names like Country Urbano, Pilar Bicentenario, and Insula Urbana. The second channel was nightlife and hospitality, fronted by Antonio Tony Ruiz, which included the Café de los Angelitos operation. On the surface, these were legal projects and venues. But prosecutors said they were laundromats, washing cartel dollars into clean pesos. The financial details tell the story best. The court slapped embargoes of 30 million pesos each, roughly 1.2 million US dollars at the time, on Henao, her son, and Serna. They also froze an apartment in Vicente Lopez linked to the family. On top of that, prosecutors tracked a 4.7% commission stream, adding up to about $101,000 paid between 2008 and 2011. Those payments usually came in $2,000 to $3,000 pieces, and part of that money was allegedly used to buy an apartment in 2012. And then there was the man at the center of it all. Piedrahita wasn't some boutique investor. He was arrested in Colombia in 2017, and records tied him to Cali-aligned cartels and a network called La Oficina de Envigado. For investigators in both Argentina and the United States, he was not a businessman with a taste for tango. He was a trafficker whose cash was soaked in cocaine and violence. That was the why behind the Argentine projects. Henao and her son denied everything. They insisted they were not part of a cartel machine, that they had lived legally in Argentina, first under asylum, later under permanent residency, and that their business dealings were innocent or misinterpreted. But prosecutors didn't back off. They argued that Maria Isabel Santos and her son weren't just bystanders. They were the link that made everything possible. In their words, the pair were essential. That meant the Colombian traffickers' money would have stayed stuck outside Argentina, if not for them. They were the ones who connected him to local businessmen, opened the doors, and gave his cash a path into polished projects like real estate towers and tango venues. Without their involvement, prosecutors said, the laundering pipeline simply wouldn't have worked. By August of 2019, prosecutors wanted the case to go to trial. They named 9 people, including Henao, her son, Mauricio Serna, and businessman Mateo Corvo Dolcet. In June of 2020, Judge Nestor Barral agreed and officially sent the case toward trial. But things slowed down. By December of 2022, the hearings were put on hold after the defense filed motions. Then, in June of 2023, lawyers tried to tie the laundering case to an unrelated national spying scandal, but that move was rejected, keeping the laundering case alive. Even as late as 2025, new court battles over seized assets showed the file was still active and far from finished. Number 1. Rosario Niebla Cardoza. Rosario Niebla Cardoza was the wife of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, the man who quietly ruled at the very top of the Sinaloa cartel right alongside El Chapo. But her life didn't scream cartel queen the way people might imagine. There were no golden palaces or diamond-studded outfits. Her world was dressed up to look respectable, even ordinary. Her version of wealth came wrapped in the rhythm of ranch life and small-town businesses. That calm and respectable surface was the point. It was designed to say, we're business people. And for a long time, on paper, that's exactly what it looked like. The backbone of Rosario's comfort was the family's dairy empire. The Zambadas owned a company officially called Nueva Industria de Ganaderos de Culiacán, but everyone in Sinaloa knew it by its brand name, Lecheria Santa Monica. To the community, it looked like an honest business, feeding families across the state. But it was bigger than that. Santa Monica wasn't just a dairy, it was one of the biggest cattle and dairy operations in Sinaloa, stretching into 4 different states. That scale is what gave Rosario's life its steady rhythm. Money flowing in every single day, enough revenue to keep her homes polished, her staff paid, and her reputation secure. And she didn't stop there. Rosario had a gas station too. This wasn't some shadow company hidden behind fake owners. The paperwork carried her own name, Rosario Niebla Cardoza ANP. One of the trade names was even Gasolinera Rosario. It sat at Avenida Manuel Vallarta, number 2141. Right in the heart of Culiacán. On the surface, nothing looked suspicious. In reality, it was another piece of the family's wheel. Then, there was the daycare. Estancia Infantil Niño Feliz was registered at that same Manuel Vallarta address. If the gas station projected business, the daycare projected trust. It was the perfect symbol of respectability. We're not criminals, we're helping families. And for years, that image worked. Her homes matched the same style. Rosario wasn't linked to gaudy palaces covered in marble and gold. She was tied to Las Quintas, one of the most desirable neighborhoods in Culiacan. Treasury files name her at specific addresses: Calle Ciudad Victoria, number 1168, Calle Ciudad de Hermosillo, number 1168, Calle Ciudad de Puebla, number 1254. These weren't cartel safe houses filled with gunmen. They were clean, gated homes on tree-lined streets, where neighbors drove SUVs and waved politely, pretending not to notice who lived next door. But the calm facade cracked wide open on May 17, 2007. That's the day the U.S. Treasury used the Kingpin Act to target El Mayo's money network. They didn't dance around it. They named names. Rosario Niebla Cardoza was right there on the list.
Thank you to our great U.S. Attorney here. We also have our DEA Administrator, Terry Cole.
She wasn't treated as a bystander. She was identified as someone who owned or controlled the very businesses that made Zambada's wealth look legitimate. And she wasn't alone. 4 of her daughters, Maria Teresa, Miriam Patricia, Monica del Rosario, and Modesta, were also placed on the list. Why? Because authorities found their names written into the ownership papers and filings for the same companies: the dairy, the ranch, the construction firm, the daycare, and even the gas station. On paper, they weren't bystanders. They were part of the network. And the sanctions didn't stop at people. They named the companies one by one: Santa Monica Dairy, Establo Puerto Rico, the ranch company, Hamaro Constructores, the construction firm, Multiservicios Jevis, the services outfit, Estancia Infantil, Niño Feliz, the daycare, and the gas station with Rosario's own name on it. In one announcement, the polished "we're just business people" story collapsed. Now it was official. These were fronts for cartel money. For Rosario, that meant something simple but brutal. Bank accounts could be shut down, suppliers could pull away, cross-border orders could vanish. The same paperwork, tax IDs, company deeds, and licenses that once gave her cover now gave investigators the keys to lock her out. The money trail around the daycare made the picture even clearer. Treasury listed Estancia Infantil Niño Feliz at Manuel Vallarta, 2,141, and Mexican reporters later revealed the numbers. The daycare kept receiving government money even after being flagged, over 10 million pesos between 2007 and 2009, about 22.4 million pesos more between 2018 and 2021, and a grand total of 73.6 million pesos across 4 administrations. Rosario owned the property, and one of her daughters was a listed partner. Parents saw a safe place for children. Investigators saw steady streams of taxpayer money flowing into a cartel-linked business. And the scrutiny didn't end there. The Treasury went further, calling out the professional who had helped make everything look legitimate. His name was José Antonio Núñez Bedoya, a notary in Culiacan. He was accused of setting up Estancia Infantil Niño Feliz and Establo Puerto Rico, and of notarizing property purchases for Santa Monica Dairy. And it wasn't just El Mayo's network he worked for. Records showed he notarized properties for Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán and his wife, Griselda Lopez, too. All this was happening while El Mayo himself carried a U.S. bounty of $5 million and faced indictments in multiple courts. Thanks for watching. Now check out the videos popping up on screen for more unbelievable stories.